One way to make us care more about the main character in any good novel or film is to create a good antagonist, the people we love to hate. We have met some very evil and despicable antagonists this semester, and some who were not so much mean as they were just plain unlikable. Jordan Sparks from Forged by Fire, Salim from Slumdog Millionaire, Brittany from Hanging On to Max, Timmy and Greg from American Born Chinese, Precious's mother from Precious, Dwight Hansen from This Boy's Life, and Regina George and the Plastics from Mean Girls. Which ones will you remember long after this course ends, and why?
I kind of said that, like, Jordan Sparks was the most memorable, just because, like, he was probably one of the characters that I felt the most hate towards, or even felt anything. Because, I mean, all the rest of them, it was kind of like, oh, it's, like, the bad character or whatever, but Jordan, like, was, like, the character that I actually hated.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think Jordan will stick in my memory out of like everybody because just how like truly mean he was. Like he was an abusive father and like an abusive husband, and he just like was never there for his family. He was like drinking and stuff, and I think that'll just stick with me because he like how bad he actually was.
I agree with Max and David because I mean he was basically the worst antagonist of them all. But I also said that the ones that I will remember the most would be the Plastics because they're presented on an environment that we're all familiar with, that is high school, so we can all relate kind of to that in some way. I mean, obviously it's not to that extreme. But,
yeah, I said the same thing. That I remember the Plastics and Regina George the most because like the stereotypes are like just like so like out there and they like are like to the T, and like I think that like since that like we're in like in a high school environment that we can like that's what's like we see every day, and that we can like when we're in school like we can like pick out like the Plastics and like we can see like the different groups, but like I think that like the stereotypes are just to a T, and that's why like, I'll remember them.
So you're saying it's Plastics in our grade?
Yeah. I mean I think that there's like Plastics not great.
I think one that like I didn't really think was an antagonist was Brittany. Like I didn't really get like the sense like of hatred towards her, that she was like a bad person. Like I don't think anyone like she made like a mistake, but I don't think she was like necessarily like the bad part of that story. But I would agree with everyone about Jordan Sparks that he was like the absolute worst. And I don't know if like that stuck with me the most because that's like the first book we read, but like I just remember hating him the most because of like all that he did to Gerald and Angel and how much like we all kind of like Gerald and Angel, so that made it that much worse.
Kind of going off what Sarah said, I think Hanging On to Max really didn't have like a true antagonist. I think there's like multiple like people that could have been like Brittany, I guess, like Sam's dad, and then I guess Max himself kind of was the antagonist in a way because Sam was just trying to like he didn't know like what he wanted, and Max is kind of getting in the way of that in a sense.
I agree. Go ahead.
I think that Jordan will always stick with me because I don't know, just whenever I see a little kid, I like always just think of him and I'm like, oh my gosh, what if that's happening to them? But I mean, hopefully it's not. But just like having that like come to mind when I see little kids, I think that's just a really big impact because I don't understand how anyone could do that to someone. And I just like, I don't know. I think that I'll always, like when I'm a parent, I'll always be the parent that kids can like come to if something bad is happening to them. Like I hope someone would come to me if they needed help.
Yeah, I agree with everyone that said Jordan Sparks. He's the one antagonist that I really like remembered throughout everything that we've done. I would say it's because like Gerald started off really young, getting abused and all that, and then his life was great, and that's all you wanted for him. But then he entered another life of abuse, and it was just constant. And then there's another person just like him who was being abused as well. So I thought that really set it off.
I also said Jordan because I feel like it's like really hard to imagine that somebody could do that to like a little kid. And then I also was saying that the person from Slumdog Millionaire that like threw the acid in that the kid's eyes, like I don't think that's so, but I thought that was really messed up too.
I agree with that. I don't really think Salim was the antagonist in Slumdog Millionaire. Like, he made some bad choices, but in the end he sort of redeemed himself by, like, helping out his brother. And then I also said Jordan Sparks was the worst because he was like the only antagonist that actually had to like die for them to get away. It was like he came back after going to prison, and like in this boy's life, I mean, the kid just like left his stepfather. Like he wasn't that hard.
Go ahead, Deacon.
Oh, Max. I agree with everyone saying Jordan, but I also think Precious's mom was one of the worst too. They were both just really mean and abusive.
Yeah, I agree. Like Jordan Sparks was the like main antagonist, and I think he was like the most impactful because there is like abuse happening with like little kids and stuff, and maybe we just don't know about it. But I also thought Precious was bad because like teens like do get pregnant, and it's just like awful. It's already like awful and hard, like living your life and stuff. But like her mom like made it so much worse with like not caring that like what her dad was doing to her.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely thought Precious, the mom, had like the biggest impact on me because she was just like very abusive and intense with everything and just super rude to Precious. But Jordan definitely was the big antagonist in all the stories too.
Going back to what David said about not really being an antagonist and hanging on to Max, or then possibly Max, I would say that the antagonist would be Sam himself, because like the story is kind of against himself or like his thoughts. I don't know, that's just my own perspective.
I feel like
No, go ahead.
I feel like Celine wasn't the antagonist, the guy with the acid, that poured acid into kids' eyes. I feel like he was, and Celine was like just a savage. Yeah.
I also think that Jordan was like, I think that Jordan was the worst. I said that the classics were like the most memorable, but like Jordan was the worst because like I felt like I had like the most like hatred, and like I was like whenever like we'd read about him, like I'd just cringe and like I'd get mad, so that's why I like I feel like I had like the most like physical connection.
I agree. I agree with that. I think that Jordan, like, he did so much bad and then kept getting so many chances that it wasn't really like worth hurting all these kids. Like it was just like horrible. I agree, because there was just like a lot of amp to that, because like he like left and then came back and then he was good for a little bit and then like we all knew, so there was just like a lot of like waiting for something to happen. So I just feel like it kind of just like makes you hate him more because like you know what he's gonna do and stuff.
I also think that American Born Chinese would like impact like all of us because like I bet we've all seen like on page 15 when like Jin gets made fun of for what he's eating, even though it's like cultural. Like I know I've seen that in like elementary school, like kids making fun of like what somebody else is like doing or eating or wearing. So I feel like we could all kind of relate to that, and like we've all heard those stereotypes that are found in the book.
I feel like Mean Girls is like the one that we're gonna remember the most, like Regina George, because that movie is like so popular and everyone's probably already seen it before we watched it, and it's just like the most relatable to us, I feel like.
I think the most memorable one is gonna be American Born Chinese, because like now that I've like read that book, like I notice it all the time now, like just stereotypes, and so like I just like keeps like coming up in my mind, so.
Yeah, I think for us, like, I don't know if it's like a generalization, but American Born Chinese and Mean Girls is one that we'll like kind of remember the most because it's so relevant to us. But I feel like we all see like Forged by Fire and Precious as like the hardest because like a lot of us like Whiteside is like a pretty like sheltered area, so we don't see a lot of that. So like especially in Precious, like it was just so like shocking for me to like watch that and see like a mother would treat her daughter like that and like take her child and like blame her broken up marriage on her and like all it like just blame so much on her daughter that like And also to see like the amount of abuse that was happening in Forged by Fire, that like made it so much worse, because like, we've never really been like exposed to that kind of stuff, or at least I haven't.
I was happy when Jordan died. Like that, like that shows like what kind of character he was.
What about what happened at the end of the movie, The Boy's Life, when Dwight like attacked what's his name?
Jack, yeah.
Jack. You guys think he could be runner up for an antagonist, or no one's really mentioned that?
I thought he was like, Dwight was just annoying. Like, I didn't like hate him that much, but I was just like annoyed with his presence there, because he was just like, always just like in the way, and you never like I feel like with Jordan, like, you almost had like a connection with him, and it was like a connection of hatred, but with like, Dwight, like, it was just like, I just wanted to leave, like, I was just annoyed with him, but I didn't like hate him that much.
Yeah, 'cause he didn't really do anything like super abusive, but he was just like getting in the way of like opportunities and stuff for Jack and slash Toby.
Yeah, so what if you had a parent like that, though? I always tried to make you do like, go to Cub Scouts, and throw paper and all the
Well, I
crap
would
he
be
did.
annoyed and like I would leave like he did.
Let's say you got some letter from some school and he's like, no, you can't go there, and rips it all up.
He did that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He went away. He already did that.
I wouldn't really consider him an antagonist, really. I mean, he was kind of like I guess I'd say he was like just a dick, but I mean, he was just like this annoying guy, and I mean, a lot of people that have like a family, it's dysfunctional, and that's kind of how it was. It wasn't really that this guy was like uber mean or anything, he was just dysfunctional. So I don't really think that that's like worthy of calling him an antagonist.
But I think like once he got like physical, like that's when like it started to become like a problem, and like they got out at a good time.
Yeah, I felt like Toby's mom always kind of felt like there was something wrong there, and she like understood that Dwight might not be the best option for them. But in like Forged by Fire, Jordan's mom was just completely blind to everything he did, and I think that's what made the situation so much worse for like Gerald.